Hello in the Twitch world. Just working on a little setup. I have not yet been able to get our IT department to adjust some of our camera settings. So, play around a little bit with these things. You can see on the large screen there, we've got a little bit of stuff laid out. And try to make this a little bit bigger so we can really get in there. So this week's show, we're not going to be painting minis, so I'm going to put all of my brushes away and move a couple of things here. Now you can see that we have some different dice, because today is pursuing a passion. We're going to be doing some reviews, and we thought it would be kind of cool to do some reviews on some dice. So not all of them are in the package. This set here I have been using on stream when I'm rolling up characters, but we'll talk a little bit about those, as well as these sets here, which are currently available from Green Oaks Gaming on our eBay page while we are awaiting some web page setup. So these are just a couple of examples of some dice. And Tammy has just brought in some water because, as we've talked before about dice, we want to do a little bit of balancing test and just do some comparative analysis on the different tests or on the different dice. So you can see I've got these brown dice. I've got Sophie's Lucky Dice. So this was part of a Reaper Kickstarter. Sophie's Lucky Dice. I know it's kind of hard to see with this camera. Let's see if we can get this like this. It does have the Sophie Succubus on there, and then Sophie's Lucky Dice.
And then one of those other sets is a Chessex set, and I put the box there so you could show it's kind of your run-of-the-mill, get it at the hobby stores.
And that is this blue set here of Chessex Dice. Move the cup so we can see it.
Those run, so those ones I believe got for $11.95. And there again, that was just at a local hobby store, because we like to, as much as possible, support those local hobby stores. And then the last set we actually ordered as part of a larger kit, or a larger package of them off of Amazon. I don't know if you've done any searching on Amazon or anything like that for dice, but typically there's some pretty good deals out there to be found. This was one of, I believe it was 20 sets of dice, which to me, 20 sets of dice, $24.95, so super good price. Definitely something worth looking into.
So the Chessex Dice, like Tammy mentioned, those are dice that you find in hobby stores. So I use the case when I'm painting miniatures, and as well as when I'm shipping miniatures. Your 28 millimeters fit in there nicely, and you can put some blue tack or poster tack on the top and use it for a handle. So I use the cases for those quite a bit. So Chessex Dice, these are a solid color, and it is just a pearlescent color. These are the dice you're going to find most often are being used by players. So quite a bit of these dice get onto gaming tables, and relatively good price, and like Tammy mentioned, really supportive of your local game stores. So real quick, what we're going to do is pop this into our salt water. Oh, it's not going to float because it's so dense. But when we dropped it in, we got an 18.
Oh, it's not salt water. And that would be the problem, wouldn't it?
Yep, and that time we got a 12. Let me get some paper towel here. We'll dry this off.
Does it need to be warm or cold water?
Whatever. But while we're getting some saltier water, just a couple of rolls, a 2, there's a natural 20. Right on camera, natural 20. An 11, a 5, a 12, so pretty random. Standard dice. These have rounded edges, so you don't have sharp points to them, even on your D4. The edges are pretty rounded and no sharp points. At Chessex Dice, as mentioned, really well known. Now the next pearlescent set we have here is this brown set, and this was actually purchased at the dollar store. So the thought process that I had was I wanted to just check and see, with these dice sets being at $1, how are they comparatively to what you get at Chessex. So let's just do a few rolls and see. So there's a 12, a 12, a 16, a 13, a 19, a 17, a 10, a 3, a 16, an 8, a 9. So kind of variant. Let's see. So this actually had a little bit more buoyancy than the Chessex. You can see it moving around really easy in there, where the Chessex did not. And dry this off a little bit. And we're going to swap some water out here. And, oh yeah, you can see the brininess in there. All right, let's drop it in again. And, oh yeah, there we go, a nice float. So there it's kind of a little bit edged up, but it's kind of facing the 15. So we're going to do a quick spin here and see where it comes back to. Came back to 15. Spin it again, and let's see where it comes back to. 15.
So is that the set that I bought at the dollar store?
Yeah, this is the dollar store set. So let's do it again, hit it again, just so we can see. 15. Every single one of them so far is on 15. So that says that it is actually unbalanced. There's some type of a void, most likely, in that upper area near that 15 that you're not able to see because the dice is not translucent. So let's try now the Chessex again. Now see how heavy that is, how dense that is? It just went right to the bottom.
Doesn't that also mean that it does not have any air voids?
Yeah, it could very well mean that there are no voids in there. And again, just right down to the bottom. But that second time it kind of hit with 18 up, and the first time was, I believe, 9 up. So most likely that means that this dice is going to be a little more balanced. Let's try real quick. This is the Amazon dice. Now this is a translucent dice, you can see. And one of the things I always do is look at my translucence and see if there are any voids in it. Now I did see that, you can see it there on screen. There is an air bubble in there. So you automatically know that there is an air bubble. You're able to see it right away. but it also has a lot of density to it and sunk to the bottom.
All right, here's a much harder test.
And also kind of rolling differently as I drop this one in. Let's dry it off and just do 8 rolls on this and see where they end up. So there's an 8, a 1, an 11, a 16, a 9, a 1, a 12, and a 5. And then the last one, a natural 1. So you see the variant, we got a couple of 1s on there. Is the air bubble making a little bit of difference on that, throwing the weight off a little bit? It's possible, but it was still fairly random. This one here was the one that was most surprising because we had a lot of really good rolls. There's that 15 up. We know that it is favoring that aspect. When we drop it in, it goes right back to 15. So end floats. That just definitely shows the variance in materials in the construction.
So the new set that I brought out there is actually one of the test sets that I made. You can see there are some holes. Definitely, this is made out of resin as opposed to just being a plastic.
Let's check and see. We'll do the 8 rolls. There was a 14, an 8, a 10, 19, 2, 14, 7, 14, and 18. So good variety of rolls.
But like I said, it does have holes in it.
Yeah. So this one has a little bit of buoyancy to it, but not a ton. You can see the surfaces are just covered with water, though.
You can
And
see
that's
the bubbles.
Yeah, that's part of the surface not quite being polished yet. It's not completely polished yet. It is those pockets basically are what's holding that air. But it's got a little bit of float. It's just barely touching the bottom compared to the Chessex and the Amazon, which went directly to the bottom.
It's interesting because there again, it's a different material. These are actually made out of resin. And I hadn't tested them up to this point.
So yeah, 3 different sets so far, 3 different outcomes. I actually am not going to open the Sophie's dice to roll them, just because I love the placard so much. But they do look pretty cool. Really, they look like a mixed set, so it makes me think of in my youth when I would gather whatever dice I could, as well as sometimes still at the local game stores. I'll go through and just pick out dice that I think look cool that I'll need. So like more D4s, more D8s, depending on what I may need. But definitely pretty interesting. So instead of the D20, I want to move to the D12 and try that one. So we're going to do the dollar store first. We're going to drop it in the water. And it also just floats madly away. And it's facing the 5. Let's give it a big old tap and see what happens. So it went to 2, to 7, to 7, to 8. So this one seems to be a little bit, well, definitely a lot more balanced than the D20.
That's actually really interesting.
Let's try the Chessex D12 and see what happens here. You can actually feel the weight variance
difference
on these. The D12 from Chessex is definitely, I would say, more than double the weight. Feel those real quick and tell me what you think. Just slightly over double the weight.
Yeah. Now, I mean
The Amazon D12?
No,
The resin D12?
The resin. I'm just curious. You can even feel a slight difference there.
Yeah, even there the resin is a little bit heavier than the dollar store D12. Let's try the resin real quick in the water and see. It also just hovers above the bottom. It definitely has a little bit of buoyancy to it, but not much.
I think that one's gonna roll to the one because I believe there's a decent air pocket.
Yeah, it could be.
I said these were, so I bought a set of dice molds off of Amazon because I like seeing a lot of different things and trying a lot of different things, and these were part of my test runs.
So there you can see the Chessex sunk right to the bottom, and it is firmly on the bottom in the salt. So settling down right to the bottom. Definitely weight, whatever they're using for their PU or PE is definitely
Heavier.
denser for sure. There is definitely a lot more weight to the D12. Let me just real quick, we'll do 5 rolls on each of the D12s. There's an 8, a 9, a 5, a 2, a 9, and a 10. So 2 9s on that one. Let's try this. Oh, we're off the map, but there's a 3, a 10. That was cocked. Boy, I'm just rolling horrible. An 11, a 9, a 1, and a 7. Let's go back to the resin. There's a 2, a 1, an 8, a 2, a 9, and an 8. And then let's try the Amazon. There is a 7, there's a 6, there is a 2, there is a 2, there is a 12. So these ones you can see again, because these have actually even more aggressively rounded corners than the Chessex. So while the Chessex has rounded corners, I mean comparatively, the Amazon ones are even more rounded. So you could see it on the mat as they were rolling even a little bit more than the Chessex. Oh, I say that, and then the Chessex. That was pretty cool, a 6 and a 9 though. It's a good thing they put those dots on the dice for those types of numbers. But this one here, again, if you were to look through it on the translucency, you can see that the D12 does not have an air pocket like the D20 did. Still sinks to the bottom, so still kind of dense, or pretty dense, but definitely a lot more on the rounded corners and edges, even more so than the Chessex. And then how about the corners compared to the
those are
dollar store ones?
definitely a little sharper on the dollar store.
Yeah, a little bit sharper on the dollar store ones. So it's interesting to see the difference in just small variances in molds.
Mm-hmm.
So pretty interesting.
I do notice the numbers are pretty standard across all of them.
Yep.
Which that's a good thing. I mean, I guess it's up to you. It's a personal opinion thing, but to my way of thinking, it's a good thing because you know what you're looking at.
Yeah, absolutely. So the water test, if you're planning on trying the water test, I can tell you that as far as these Chessex dice go anyhow, it's not going to work because of the density of the dice. And then even the Amazon dice are dense enough to where they're not going to float. So even there, you would have to do a lot of rolls and then get aggregate numbers to see if you've got out of whack variance to repetitive numberness. So it's a big test that you have to do. I would say for a casual game, none of them really scare me as much as the dollar store ones. But even then, the dollar store one, I mean, when we did our initial rolls, they worked really, really well on still having some randomness. I mean, they were pretty high in numbers. I don't think we got anything below a 10 as we were rolling that D10. But it was really interesting to just feel the weight variance on the different dice, and then to see those dollar store ones just float so aggressively compared to all the others, even the resin.
Yeah, and the one thing I would say is they may not be perfect, but boy, they were $1.
Yeah, and that's something that's really, if you're looking at doing gifts, stocking stuffers,
Yeah.
you're getting dice for new players. It's a great savings that is good enough. You're not going to, break your game, and you're not going to really hamper the player by having something like that to them. The Chessex Dice, obviously kind of what's considered to be kind of the standard premier dice. Now there are a lot of dice that are even more expensive.
Yes, yes.
Do you want to get the metal dice, or do you want me to?
You go ahead.
All right, I'm going to grab some metal dice real quick.
While he's doing that, just to kind of break it down. So again, the brown ones, those were dollar store. Of course, now that would be $1.25. The Amazon dice, we worked it out at one point in time, and those actually come out to be like $1.79 for a set. So if you have a big group of people to do a gift for, those are a great way to do it. Just kind of to give a little bit of color. And then again, the Chessex, I've seen those ranging from $10.95 all the way up to $15, and just a really broad range of price on those. But to my way of thinking, they're also very good. But if you have a dice addiction like some people, Amazon's the way to go.
I have to dig for my metal dice because I've got a couple of sets of dice all stored in one box.
Show them a couple of sets of dice.
Now I just got to find my D4. There we go. So it's just a couple of sets, that's all. So on the screen now, I've added some novelty dice. So these oversized large dice were picked up at a local gaming store.
Yes.
I don't remember how much they were.
They were 14 and change.
Yeah, 14 and change, so 15 bucks. This was just a novelty set. However, I have had players at the table, because I have so many dice, I always offer to let others use my dice as they need them. And this is the ones that the majority of people go for.
Big and easy to see.
No, I think it's all because it's a novelty. The novelty of giant dice. So I'm going to put the water back on screen here. And we're going to do the same thing with the D20. First, I suppose I better do my 8 rolls. Let's see.
I just really think those ones are going to sink.
I think so too, because they are heavy. So there's a 5, a 12, 15, 17, 11, 16, natural 20. Look at that. Yes, that's a critical hit right there. And then a 15. So yeah, the weight on these, this is definitely probably 2.5 times heavier than the Chessex dice.
Yeah.
Yeah, they definitely sink. I mean, they've got a little bit of buoyancy to them, but not much.
No, I can see it moving around in there.
Yeah, definitely a little more buoyant, and I would say that's most likely because the material is going to be less dense. However, the size just makes it that much more weight in the unit. I'm not going to put the metal dice in the water because I can guarantee that they will not float.
Yeah, those are actually really heavy.
So this is a set of bronze dice, and very decorative. You can also find these with enameled paint to make the numbers even more apparent and easier to read.
And in golds and silvers.
And they've got gold, silver, brass.
And I believe that set of dice was actually $24.
Yeah, right around 25 bucks. The one thing, so these dice are actually really, really cool. The thing is they're so heavy that they're hard to use at the table. And just for a comparison, when this hits, I mean, you just hear that solid thud comparatively. But let's do our 10 rolls. So there was a 17, an 18, a 7, a 4, an 18, a 17, an 8, a 15, and a natural 20. Wow. I gotta stop rolling because I'm gonna roll all my natural 20s out, and I'm not gonna be able to really threaten my players at our next session.
You're on a roll.
But they're really cool. A lot of people like to look at them, but again, because they're so heavy and weighty, they're a little more cumbersome at the table. But they are really cool. I like to use them. It's just they're so loud.
They're great for that person with a dice addiction.
Yeah, definitely a collecting piece. If you have a dice tower, I would say not to use the metal dice in the dice tower because oftentimes the inner workings of the dice tower are just stacked shelves, kind of slanted shelves that the dice will hit, and you could actually damage the shelves.
Yeah, because they aren't made of necessarily super strong material.
Right. So if you like using dice towers or even dice trays, I would caution just to make sure you're rolling as gently as possible if you're using metal dice, because while they are really wicked cool, they are super heavy, super weighty, and they definitely have a hit to them when they're striking the table or anything like that.
So I didn't get any because I didn't see the practical purpose of them, but I've seen a lot lately that they're almost like a chromoscope type thing, steampunk.
With a lot of flare and filigree.
And a lot of holes through them.
Yes.
I mean, throughout them. Now they're metal, so I would imagine that they've still got some weight to them. But do you have any thoughts on that kind of a design and the possibility of playing with it?
So for me, they've also got dice that are kind of oddly shaped. They're more like oblong. For me, those are, again, more like if you're into differentiation. For me, the metal ones that look like they're made of wire almost and wrapped together,
yes.
And they have a lot of filigree and everything. For me, those ones, I have not myself rolled any of them. I don't really think they're all that great just because I'm not into that type of aesthetic, I suppose is the best way to put it. The biggest thing for me is I like dice that I can, one, easily read at the table, because oftentimes when I'm playing, I have a little bit lower light, and so I have to be able to really see the dice. So I like dice that have colors that I can really easily see. I like bold colors with bright white numbering on them. And again, I'm not a big fan of the metal just because they're so heavy, they're so chunky that when I roll them, it feels very, very heavy and loud and disruptive, I guess. So I'm not very big on those. Now I do have in my collection some very old dice. These are original Dungeons and Dragons dice, and of course I've been collecting dice for a number of years. I don't want to dig through and get them all, but you can see on screen my original D20 and my original D4. Both of these dice are from the Holmes Basic set, and I absolutely cherish these dice. You can see the crayon is rubbing out, but an interesting fact on these old sets of dice, you can see they get chewed up pretty hard. These edges are really starting to wear and round, and the D20 goes from 1 to 0 and 1 to 0. So it wasn't actually 20 on the numbers. It was 1 to 0 and 1 to 0. So the way that they've now come with dice to actually be numbered from 1 to 20 comparatively, that was a little bit of a learning curve. But the classic dice, I am still a big fan of. I don't use them as much because I don't want them to
You were talking about colors, so
rub and take away from the dice themselves, because now I think they are considered collector's items.
yeah.
So I should actually pull them out of my dice box and store them somewhere, but I still like to use them.
Now you were talking about colors and about visibility, and so most of these are Amazon sets. And I mean, if you look at the clear ones, and you can buy some kits out there that are all clear or they're all swirled. The clear ones to me are a little bit harder to read.
Yeah, and a lot of times it's the way that they put the numbers. So you can see this one here is pink with gold, which is great colors, but when you get into trying to read this on the table, it can be a little more challenging. I mean, here we've got big reading lights, so the lights are designed for, really highlighting paper and miniatures and things like that. But in standard light conditions, let's see if we can capture it. And it
gets lost.
It gets lost a little bit. So one thing you can do is actually re-ink your dice if you're having a hard time seeing them. A lot of different ways you can do that. I've done it myself actually with, I'll use enamel paint and just paint it, and then quickly use like a paper towel to take off the excess, and your paint should stay in the depressed numbers. That's a great way to re-ink dice. They have now the enamels with the pin head to where you can really get in there and just do the numbers. You can also, depending on the dice, you can use things like acrylics. It's just not going to hold up as much. Crayons, you can do crayons. It is recommended that you remove the paint that's in there before you do re-inking, but there again, if you're just a casual user and you want to see dice a little clearer, it's probably not as important. Here you can see purples and blues with gold.
But that sticks out a lot more.
A lot more because you've got darker colors with the brighter numbers.
And so if you're looking for an easier to use, I kind of think the mixed colors are a great way to go because of that.
This set here is a glow-in-the-dark set.
I don't know if it's charged enough to work either.
No, probably not. And with the lighting that I have in here, I don't think that we would be able to get them to glow.
Alexa, make office purple.
Okay.
Yeah, didn't get enough light for these to glow very strong. Now I can see a little bit in the tray, especially but on screen you just can't see it at all. It would definitely have to get some light. Maybe we'll try it again.
Alexa, make light white or office white.
Oh, the purple's fine if you want to leave it.
Okay.
But we'll leave that under the light uncovered for a bit and see if we can't capture that before we go. So here's another Chessex set. And this is just a black pearlescent. It does have a bit of swirl to it.
But with that, it's such a dark color with a gold.
Yeah, and the gold stands out pretty well.
Just, yeah, really, really pops.
And then with those lighter colors, having the black really stands out.
Yes.
So for me personally, I really like to go black and white. If I've got a light colored dice, I want to go black. If I've got a darker colored dice, I want to go white. Because that, being able to read them at the table quickly and easily, definitely allows things to progress more quickly in your games too. So.
And that's something, when you're looking at these bigger kits, like the one we got off of Amazon, you've noticed that the clear or the see-through ones, they all have that kind of off coloring to see. So I mean, it's just something to be aware of when you buy that set of dice. When you buy the big massive dice, I mean, so I admit, me personally, I look at all the colors because I like to have the variety of colors. However, I know that you take the time to look at the colors versus the number color.
Yeah, absolutely. So as an example, I'll grab two of my favorite sets of dice here. And I'll grab I'll grab a D10 and a D20. So this set here is a yellow and green with white numbers. And this one's not too bad, but on the table, depending on the amount of yellow, it can be a little bit more difficult to see, but it still stands out nice and strong. Very, very strong. Now this set we got because it is our colors with blue and Kelly green, so we use those colors in our branding, but also the Seattle Seahawks, go Hawks. And these ones, depending on the amount of green that's in the dice, some of the numbers can get lost. And this dice probably isn't the best example. The D20 has a little bit more to where the numbers are a little bit more challenging to see because the colors are so complementary of each other. They're not as contrast. So big variance on the actual color of the dice versus the number is going to make a big difference when you're playing at the table, especially depending on your light sources, right? So
yeah, there's another horrible example.
Yeah, here's a great example. This is silver numbers on a yellow dice, and again, the lights here just are really making it pop out. But when you're looking at this on the table, it's absolutely horrific to see. And part of that is because the white is not very white. This is like an off-white. So I need to get these re-inked with a very bright white. A pure white or a titanium white will help stand those out a lot better. But because it's silver on this very pearlescent yellow, it just doesn't stand out a whole ton. Now that's the best you can see, but that's because it's the way the light is hitting it. So that set of dice of mine are just really challenging to use on the table. But dice. Let's, I want to real quick pop these lights off and see if we got some charge.
Alexa, turn off office.
Okay. In these glow in the dark. I mean, you see a little bit more than you could earlier.
You still got some reflection from the screen, but
yeah,
it is definitely glowing.
Yeah, and in hand, it just, here I can see it a lot better than what the screen is showing. Let's see if I mean, you can't really see it by my head. It's by my head. There is definitely a little bit that you're seeing. I don't want you to think that that's just the reflection alone. That is actually glow. Here, I'm actually able to see it really well. I've got a D10 on showing a 4. The D12 has got 11. The D8 is on an 8. Another D10, the percentile, is on its double O's. The D6 is on its 6. D20 on the 12. And the D4 is the only one that I'm having a little bit challenge. It's on the 4 up. So definitely the glow in the dark are cool. The one thing is it's challenging to play RPGs in the dark. So it's one of those things of, do you really need it? Well, if you're some type of a collector or playing a campaign in blacklight or anything like that, absolutely, they're super cool. But otherwise, you got to think about your playing scenario and environment as well.
All right, so to kind of break it down, dollar store ones, that's really, it's a great stocking stuffer. It's a great, good one to give to a older kid.
A newbie.
Yeah, a newbie. Definitely something like that.
Need it in a pinch if you're on your way to a game and you forgot your dice, so you don't have your supplies with you. You stop in a dollar store.
Hit or miss though, because dollar stores don't stock everything consistently.
True, but it's an option.
The Chessex set, definitely, probably my favorite, because you are supporting a local business. Dollar for dollar, they are a little bit more expensive, but it's got that 2 elements of you're
Right.
supporting local business.
Right, and I think also the quality is going to be consistent from set to set. So regardless, if you're going through and buying a couple of different Chessex sets, you're going to know that they're going to be consistent from set to set. So you're able to interchange and have good quality in every set that you buy.
And I'd also say that most of these places that sell the Chessex dice also sell individual dice that you can build your own set. Those dice, I don't know what kind they are, so I don't know the quality offhand.
Many times they're actually Chessex that the set has been broken up.
That's what I figured.
So also there was, I believe this was now 2 years ago, I could be wrong, but there was a truck that was carrying a load of dice that the dice spilt all over the interstate highway. I think they said it was over like 4,786 points of damage is what the rolls were on the dice they counted and collected. But it was a massive amount of dice, so things like that could be repurposed and sold at a good price to local game markets. They'll be able to buy things like that. So sometimes it's broken sets out of the store, sometimes it's broken sets out of the manufacturer, but generally, most of the time, those are actually Chessex dice as well.
Gotcha.
Just in singles.
And then if you're a dice obsessed person, I absolutely recommend going on Amazon and searching for sets or bulk.
Yeah, one thing I will give a call out if you're buying the individual dice as well. So you always want to have at least one full set because you never know when you're going to need, that D12 or the D8. There will be times where just randomly you'll need to use those dice. Now it may be to where you won't need to, but then if you're playing any type of specific character, let's say you're playing a wizard who wants to cast Fireball, D6s are going to be super important. So you want to buy more D6s so you have enough to roll for your Fireball spell without having to re-roll and re-roll and re-roll and re-roll or borrow. If you're playing a cleric and you're popping in, anything with a D8, you want to collect a few more D8s. If you're a rogue and you're doing sneak attack, it's a D6. So having those extra single dice too are a great opportunity for you to maximize your opportunity to keep things moving along at the table, and a fun way to do it while collecting dice. There's lots of memes about how everybody starts with one set and then they move up into 5,000 sets. I can say there are a couple of people that I know that are not dice hoarders like I am, but I know just as many people who are. So me, I'm a dice hoarder. I love dice. I love having different dice. I love if I have some bad rolls, I can put that dice to the side and grab a different dice and hope my luck is better with that one. I get to be very superstitious with my dice. So for me, it works out great being a DM, and being able to say that I'm going to bring dice for those who need it and really be able to use them myself as well. So definitely a big win opportunity for me.
And then the last thing is, I would say, keep your eye out. There are people out there that are creating dice and making dice sets and whatnot. And so give a look at Etsy and things like that. And no, we showed you a set that wasn't finished. I can guarantee you, if you get them off of Etsy, you're more than likely going to get a set that's a lot further along than that one. But you can get some really good dice out there. And I noticed when he was rolling them that those ones really didn't do too bad. So another place to just kind of keep your eye out.
Yeah. So yeah, dice. I think our review on dice, of course, always been a main staple for RPGs is dice. One of the biggest thing that almost all tabletop role-playing games have in common is the reliance on dice. So regardless if you're playing Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition, Dungeons and Dragons any edition really, or Marvel superheroes, Star Wars, Champions, it doesn't matter. Dice are an important part of tabletop role-playing game and should be really thought of as one of the tools in a player's arsenal to always have on hand when they're showing up to a game, whether it's virtual or online, or I'm sorry, virtually online or in person. Those dice are definitely an important staple for players to have. So I think we covered a lot. Really, the biggest parts of where to get dice, and looked at a lot of variants between the dice. I definitely think Chessex have kind of the edge, just really because they have had years to perfect their formula. Whatever they're using is nice and dense, consistent. It seems to roll really evenly across the few different sets that we tried. I think there are others who are gaining popularity. A lot of the smaller manufacturers that are selling directly on Amazon and providing them into different games. Handcrafted, which we saw some. Novelty Dice, which may be a little chonky and funky and everything, but everybody seems to
teeny tiny.
Love them. Right, there are ones that are minuscule and tiny. But yeah, a plethora of dice that are out there. I haven't come across any that so far have made me think, no, you definitely have to stay away from this. Of course, that's what we're looking to do, is give honest reviews on our Friday show and let you know things that we would really kind of steer you towards or steer you away from to make the most bang for your buck, have the most enjoyment.
Sounds good.
I know we're a little bit ahead of schedule, but that's okay because we'll just touch on now we are in our new schedule. So our new schedule started this last week. And as a reminder, we have a show on Monday that starts at 6:30 Central Standard Time. That is all about world building. So it's the journey, it's exploring, it's creating, it's delving further into gaming worlds. So Mondays, 6:30 Central Standard Time. No gamings or no show on Tuesday because of gaming. Wednesday, we have Inspirations, also at 6:30 Central Standard Time. We take character creation and put it on its head. Instead of coming up with an idea, creating a character, and then searching for a miniature that best represents that character on the table, we start with a miniature that we think is cool, whether we get it at a local game shop, whether we get it off Kickstarter, whether it's something that we sculpt and create ourselves. We'll use that to create a character so that we've already got a character represented really well in miniature form for the tabletop use. No show on Thursday, of course, because we're gaming. Friday, Inspirations, all about reviews and honest reviews about products, sites, services that are RPG related, and some fun ones coming up. So make sure you check us out 6:30 Central Standard Time on Fridays. And then Saturday, starting at noon, it's just bringing it to life, raw painting in the studio. That's noon Central Standard Time. I know we had some challenges. Initially, the schedule showed that started at midnight. It is not midnight. It is 12 noon Central Standard Time. So that is the schedule of events that we currently have for Green Oaks Gaming. If you catch this on the video on demand, make sure you give us a follow. We're not looking for subscribers. We just want to grow our followers base so that we can continue to reach more people who are interested in the hobbies. Check out our other social medias, Facebook, Yahoo, etc., etc. We also have a Instagram where we post finished pictures of the miniatures that we paint in the studio. So lots of opportunity to connect and engage with us. We thank everybody who has followed us so far for their support. Look forward to continuing to grow the community, starting to really drive more and more discussions on what people want to see out of our channels and the content that we deliver. Until the next show, Saturday at noon, hope you have a fantastic evening. Hope you're prepping up for a good, warm weekend. We're a little chilly here in Texas. We're not used to it, so we're buckling down and trying to stay warm and get through the weekend until we get back into regular temps. Of course, with all the stuff in the news, we want to make sure that we say that our thoughts and prayers with all the Ukrainians. And until next time you're able to join us, make sure you jot down a comment to let us know where will your adventures take you. Thank you again and have a fantastic evening.